All right. Now, I don't always know what the hell I'm doing with my life. So that's why I started this podcast to bring people from all over the world, or wherever, any old continent will do, to share and to bring, curate ideas from all over the world from people, whether entrepreneurs or not, to find cool and worthwhile notions and concepts and ideas. That one sentence, that one little concept that you hear in a sentence, 33 minutes in, and you do a quick Google search on that, can change your life. So that's why I say I'm an idiot, because I don't know what I don't know in this world. So through the powers of social media, I think I know how, but it's convoluted probably, I have got another guest with a podcast, episode 74 actually, which is pretty cool. So AdaPia all the way from LA.
Yeah.
It's like what 1 p.m. there, which is pretty cool. It's like 9 here. So AdaPia, please tell the world, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
What's your story? But most importantly, why are you doing what you're doing?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Please.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. So I am on my soul's mission, and I discovered that mission, or that understanding of who I am, what I'm meant to do recently. And what it's done is really, it's taken me out of this career that I had in financial technology as an executive and startups. And it's really propelled me forward with so much clarity on what I'm meant to do, which is to help other people reconnect to their sense of inner meaning and to live from that place. And so that's what I'm doing now. And I do that through coaching and consulting and speaking and writing. So taking everything that I know how to do intellectually and just infusing that with this understanding of how important it is for everyone to live from an inner place of purpose. And so my work is really centered on that. In addition, around September, as we all know, the Me Too movement happened. And that's really what galvanized me to make this big change and to reinvent myself one more time. I've done it multiple times in my life, but to really reinvent myself, to change my focus from being an executive to being a leadership facilitator, especially for women. And so that is some of the work I'm doing on the corporate side now. And the why of it, my big why is that if we're all connected to the deepest part of ourselves that lives from a place of love and truth, I feel like we can really heal ourselves. And as a consequence, heal the world, because there's no room for hate or fear or doubt, self-doubt, when you're coming from this place of love. And we've been taught for centuries to look outside of ourselves for the answer, this guru, that teacher, this external force. And so we work psychologically on an external model of validation, but the answers are within. They're right inside of ourselves. And so the why really becomes shifting that focus back inside, because all the answers we're looking for, we have them if we drop in.
Yeah, some interesting stuff there. When I was reading the show notes beforehand, AdaPia, and when you talked about the soul mission, what came to mind straight away was in February 2016, I was going through a bit of an existential crisis. Insofar as I was thinking, what am I doing? Why? What's the big picture? What's the grand, 10 years, the grand scheme of things, 10 years from now, or 9 in this case, almost 8 now in this case, where and what do I want to be doing and why, all that kind of stuff. And I picked up, this started because I picked up the book, Key Person of Influence by Daniel Priestley. Does it sound familiar?
I have not read it, not yet.
But it talks about 5 Ps and how to be a key person of influence. And the first one, I believe, is purpose. It's like, what are you doing and why? And before then, I'd never truly thought about what I was doing and why, and it's still quite fuzzy today, but a lot more clarity and a lot more focus as well from February 2016. Focusing and clarifying it down on what to do and why. Even this channel, pivoting it now ever so slightly into, you mentioned fintech, so I'm pivoting it so the TAM, the total addressable market, is a bit more wider, a bit more approachable. So I'm pivoting it slightly, yet still keeping a lot of clarity and focus.
Yes.
Just pivoting slightly. So could you please tell me then, what was like the story or internal monologue or the discussion you had with significant others or people or family or friends when you went from the executive, and I'm curious as to what that was as well and where, you went from here to where you are now?
Yeah. Well, it actually, for me, it started in November of 2016. This specific piece of it is the final piece. I had joined a startup called Patch of Land in 2014, in the very beginning of 2014. It was one of the very first real estate crowdfunding platforms. And I joined the 3 founders as employee number 1 and essentially an honorary founder, founding executive. I joined as the chief marketing officer. And so we launched this company and we essentially launched an industry, and it was within this realm of online lending. And in England, you have Lend Invest that does this, and they're fabulous people. I love them. Such good people. And so Patch of Land is that version here in America. And it was the very beginning of crowdfunding in real estate. And so for 3 years, really, everything I did was for this company, blood, sweat, and tears, and grew it from 4 people to 40 people. We crowdfunded our equity round. I mean, we just did so much. And I became very well known in the fintech space, because that was also is all growing, this financial technology sector. And I became very well known, did a lot of work, prominent. And we replaced the founding CEO in the beginning of 2016 with another CEO who was a more traditional banking man, and he and I did not get along. So that began my own version of an existential crisis, where everything that I knew how to do for this company and the culture that was there and the people that were there, my approach to things, which was very free-flowing, startup, entrepreneurial, came head to head with the opposite. And so in November, I left. I left Patch of Land. I left my company. I left what was essentially me for so many years. And I took a few months to really think about who am I right now? I don't know what's going on. It's everybody knows me. I can't leave this industry. I love it. And so I was consulting, and then I joined another company called Alpha Flow. I joined last May. And they're, again, financial technology. So it's this mix of finance and real estate, and everything is done algorithmically with technology. Fabulous company. And I joined as a chief operating officer of a small team. And I shepherded the company through a seed round, a very important seed round with important backers. And that was through the summer. And then, but something not sitting right energetically with me. And then the Me Too happened. And it just galvanized me, in my understanding of who I am as a woman, the strength that I have and the influence that I have and the ability that I have to make a big impact on the cultures of companies and on the people around me. And more women could use me to help them, lift them up, because we can be courageous through supporting each other. There's a lot of women that still won't speak up about many things. And so those that can should, and those that can help should. And I felt very called to that work. And so that was the transition. And the internal dialogue was all the time, all kinds of things. As I'm sure you know, I mean, it's constant. I'm really lucky. I have a very strong meditation and yoga practice, and I'm very centered in myself. And so I use a lot of that time to understand what to do. And it was hard. It's really scary to go from, oh, you're the fintech executive to what are you doing now? But it's also very fortunate because this industry is so embracing, and they're very excited for me to come into their companies and organizations to do this work with women because of my reputation and the impact that I had on the companies I did work with.
Yeah, a lot of stuff there to cover. You mentioned, going back a little bit, please, you mentioned the new CEO and yourself didn't see eye to eye. How, please?
It's almost, it's like oil and water, just the approach to everything. And he's very good at what he does. Operations, very linear, everything needed to go through multitude of processes. I'm more free flowing. I get things done. I have ideas. We do things, especially from a marketing and a brand perspective. It's like a beating heart. I mean, there's so many things going on when you're working with brand and different channels, and there's so many things, and so very free flowing. So he liked reporting. I did not. So that's a really specific kind of a thing, right? He wanted everything reported. I don't have time to report. We're making something happen. So that would be one example.
You mean like variance reports, for example?
Just everything reported. And the amount of time it takes you to write a report would be the equivalent of potentially launching a campaign at times. So it was just very different kinds of people and different approaches. And I have a very inclusive approach to the way I work, and culture was very important to me, and people were very important to me, and the relationships were very important to me. And the bottom line was very important to him. And that, not that there's anything wrong with that at all, but we just didn't get along too. Some people you just don't get along with.
Yeah, I understand it happens. You mentioned the Me Too movement. As a kind of a spin-off to that, I remember seeing an article or a scientific journal that was referred to me, but I can't remember which one exactly it was, that talked about how in a company, a startup, for example, that you want to have a well-diversified team, not just in skills and talents, but in backgrounds and experiences and people and culture, because it brings ideas to the table. And the way I see it is like, I think it's nuclear fission or nuclear fusion, where one atom bounces, it ricochets off others, and more ricocheting and more vibrations, more energy. So the more people you got inside with different ideas and different ways of thinking and working, you throw one marble in there, it ricochets off everyone and generates more and more ideas. What do you think to that when it comes to diversity?
There are so many studies on how diversity contributes to better organizational performance, and diversity at all levels, but especially gender diversity. And McKinsey and Company have been doing the reporting on the gender diversity. It's called Women Matter. That's their program. They've been doing it for 10 years. And they have some really interesting information. And so, for example, they have identified nine leadership traits that contribute to better company performance. And typically female leaders use 5 of those leadership traits more often than male counterparts. And these are shown to be the ones that really improve organizational performance. So for example, the 5 that women are most strong in are people development, expressing expectations and rewarding success, role modeling, inspiration, and participative decision making. And those are really fundamental to organizational performance. And it's just a different approach. It's a more inclusive approach. Women are more inclusive. They have the approach is also more co-creation instead of individualistic. So, to your analogy of the ricochet, it's like the woman would continue to bounce it back, whereas a man might stop it. And in terms of business performance and gender diversity, there's actually a difference in return on equity of 47%, that companies that had more women on their boards or on their management teams had a 47% better return on equity, and a 55% difference in operating results. So there's a lot of numbers around it. And it's really interesting when you read these results, and they've been doing them for 10 years. So it's not a one-off. Diversity matters, and there's so much latent, untapped potential that needs to be unlocked, and it would be for the benefit of everyone.
Yeah, I remember I was talking to someone, I can't remember who exactly, but from the film industry. He was saying that women make the best editors of films because they're more empathetic, so they're more able to get the character story across, for example. Mm-hmm. So I think it's genetics. Clearly genetics, insofar as there are things you and I do differently from the get-go. Like I remember them talk that women aren't so good at visualizing three-dimensional spaces. I remember some people talking to me saying they're on the London Underground and northbound and southbound, and it's like it's just a straight line. How can there be two directions? It's just a straight line, and it's like, well, one's going up, one's going down. Oh, I get it now. Yeah. So I see.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know what that journal is? You talked about the 10-year one.
Yeah, it's McKinsey. Yeah, it's the McKinsey and Company. It's, if you Google McKinsey and Company Women Matter or their diversity reports, they have them on their site, and they just came out with their 10-year one. Their 10-year results, and it's fascinating. I mean, it makes the case, and it's really important, especially now. I've been speaking to a lot of men in companies, and they say, I don't really know if I want to talk to the women in the company anymore. They're scared. And I understand that, but that's not what we want. That's not going to help. Keeping people separate isn't going to help where we want to go. We want it to be inclusive. We want the culture overall to be inclusive and to be co-creative for everyone, not just women and not just men. But there's a lot of work to be done in working with women and with the management teams on what is holding women back. Is it the external environment? Yes, to a degree, but also internally. What are we doing to ourselves internally with thoughts and beliefs, outdated, antiquated, negative and limiting? How do we get rid of those so that we can step into our power?
Okay, interesting, because now you're starting to go internally. You look introspective and retrospective, which is, I want to talk about that as well. It's interesting because you mentioned the yoga and meditation, and you mentioned also talk about gurus, and this word, if I can pronounce it right, yogini. Yogini, the female version of yogi.
Yeah.
So when you say yogi, are we talking like Sri Ramana Maharshi, or what exactly, how far in that kind of field, yogi, and
Me?
Yeah.
Oh.
Into what extent guru and yogini? If you can elaborate on that, please.
Sure. Well, I mean, I have a daily yoga practice, and yoga is more than just physical asana. It's breathing, it's mindfulness, and it's like they say, take off the mat what you bring on the mat. And so it's been a practice for me for 6 years, and it's like refining oneself and remembering. It's like grounding yourself in your body and taking some of those learnings and understandings and taking them off. And that really comes through. The meditation is also really important. I mean, it's just that when you can give yourself space and time in your mind to quiet and calm it down, is when you find the answers you're seeking, because you're not trying to rummage through a drawer of crazy energy and, oh my gosh, what's going on? I have to find the answer. I often say to people, just sit and just stop. It's okay. It's going to be okay. There's not that much to do. I mean, I feel like we've been taught for centuries to look outside of ourselves for the answers. and the gurus, and they have great, amazing teachings. And by no means do I think I'm one of them. I just know that I discovered for myself that when I was true to myself, that the answers came more naturally and they made more sense and they felt right. And so they were easier to act upon. So does that feel right? No. Does that feel right? Yes. So do what feels right. But we can't figure that out if we're not tuned in, if we're always in our minds trying to think through something logically that might not have logic. So it's really like this constant refinement and constant little bit of shedding of the ego and the beliefs too, because we have so many beliefs that aren't even ours when we actually look at them. Like, do we really believe that about ourselves or about other people? And there's a lot of in my coaching too, there's a lot of exercises that you can do to unravel limiting beliefs, and it's like they're gone and everything changes because you're not hindered by usually what an ego has thrown out to protect itself or to think it's protecting you. I mean, the psychology of this stuff is fascinating. I would love to, if I went back to school, and I might still one day, I'm not that old, to study psychology, because it's absolutely fascinating to me.
You can do it online for free.
Yeah.
Coursera, there you go. What, we're 33 minutes in? Coursera.com. Go there, find all sorts of amazing stuff. At the very least, Coursera.
Yeah.
You mentioned the ego bit and shedding it. I remember hearing that as a rule of thumb, every year, calendar year or rolling year, whatever, you want to shed one extreme belief you have of the world, or in finance or money or in society or in psychology or whatever. Just shed one of those extreme beliefs.
Yeah.
So you're much more centered and much less like it's like a decision weighted machine. It's like it's a bias that I instinctively believe this, so everything I do will have that, and the self-fulfilling prophecy stuff kind of happen, and what you focus on, cliche or instinctively, either one, you attract. So I think every year you want to get rid of one extreme belief and just slowly be more balanced and focused on what you're doing and planning and working on and what you believe. Yeah. And speaking of believe, you mentioned you were looking for these answers. What were the questions?
Well, I think I've always been looking for the answer of who am I and what am I supposed to do? And I always thought that was related to work. And so I poured so much of my energy into being someone, being a role, as opposed to being me. And in the chasing of this role of importance and influence and what have you, power, I don't know what it is, like this important person over here, title, status, that what I was actually doing was I was pushing down who I really was, because those things aren't that important. And if you're disconnected from your actual power, which is really that power of being comfortable with who you are because you're accepting who you are, those things actually come really naturally. It's this inverse relationship to the way the mind wants things to work, to the way the ego wants things to work. And so it was who am I and how can I make an impact? That was really what I was trying to figure out my whole life. And I thought I could make a bigger impact somehow if I was in a more important role, if I was, if climb that career ladder. And so that's really what I believed. I believed also in working hard, which serves me very well. I love to work, especially when I'm working with people. I love it. But I don't think of it as work anymore. It's my life. It's what I do. It's who I am. It's helping other people succeed. I love working with entrepreneurs and empowering people. So those were the questions. But the answer for me of that answer was not a role. It was who I am in my heart and soul, truly. I mean, it sounds cliche, but what's important to me when I stop thinking about, let's say, wealth, for example, and like I have a new, I'm writing a book and I have a website where I blog and it's called Real Wealth, Real Health, because I was chasing the highest number in my bank account. That's what I thought wealth was. Oh my gosh, I need all this money. And I thought health was the lowest number on the scale. And so in chasing wealth, I lost a lot of money. I was so focused on this external thing that I wasn't actually realizing that I'm so wealthy and abundant in so many other ways. And it doesn't have to be money. And yes, I have some money. I'm not rich by any means, but I'm great. I'm okay. And I have so much abundance around me. When I realized that that's wealth, then I realized that there's no need to chase all this stuff out here. And so likewise on the health side, you can imagine in trying to chase the lowest number on the scale, the kind of abuse I leveled at my body, which a lot of women do. A lot of women have body image issues and eating disorders, and I overexercise. I had a lot of health problems because I tried to be really, really skinny, and I thought that was healthy, which is not. And healthy is being in balance. It's being in flow. It's being able to, let's say you overcome a cold if you have one, but it really is like, how much do I love myself so that I'm compassionate with myself? And that's the kind of health that I needed to find an emotional and a mental place of stability. So those were the two big things that really pushed me into understanding. And that's why I'm writing this book about it. It's not that it's going to be everyone's key, but it was for me, and it helped me go inside and think about what really matters. And from going in and finding what really mattered, I was able to find myself and move forward in the world from a place of total understanding of who I am.
That's interesting, because you mentioned you're alluding to gratitude as well, and Stoicism, the philosophy of Stoicism, insofar as there was this interesting way of like generating happiness from thin air, which was looking at yourself now and saying, well, at least I still have health. At least I can still walk and talk and stand and breathe. Or if you go, if you have one less thing, well, at least I can still this, or X, at least I can still do Y, kind of thing. And saying focusing on what you do have rather than what you don't have or what's incomplete. I think it's the broken window fallacy kind of thing, or that theory, that one where all the windows are pristine, but because one of them is broken, you're only focusing on that one. It draws your attention.
Yeah.
And I think now think about it, maybe when you don't feel complete, or you're not grateful, or you don't have the answers, maybe you focus inadvertently. Maybe just the brain works that way. Like when you throw a dice, it just lands where it may be. The brain works that way insofar as finding the parts that aren't working. Because instinctively we have a loss aversion. We try to avoid pain. So inadvertently, maybe we'll focus on avoiding pain as opposed to focusing on everything else.
Absolutely. We're wired for that because we're wired biologically to look for danger. But our egos haven't quite caught up with with our biology, or our biology hasn't really caught up with our world today, because we're not in that kind of danger in the same way as our ancient ancestors were. But the signals our body gives are the same. And people can have that fight or flight response if they don't check their social media accounts. I mean, if you think about the biological response that you could have from a thought that says, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss something, FOMO, fear of missing out, I'm going to miss something. And your brain thinks that's as bad of a survival trigger mechanism as, oh my gosh, there's a tiger over there. It's so powerful, and we can fix that in ourselves. It just takes a lot of mindfulness, a lot of discipline, and a real willingness to want to shed the things that really don't matter, that really don't contribute to that sense of gratitude that you were speaking about, because that's a really important place to come from, and a mindset of abundance and not a mindset of lack or scarcity. Because when you're coming from lack and scarcity, the world is not really a great looking place.
Oh yeah, I agree with you on that. I've seen that firsthand in other people, but I won't go too much into that right now. But I've seen that firsthand. You mentioned the ego and fixing it.
Mm.
Could you please explain more about what the ego is, why it's important, and how to go about fixing it, please?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe fixing isn't really the right word. It's probably more about bringing it into balance. So I'm not a psychologist. All I understand for myself about the ego is that it's these thought patterns, and it's a part of ourselves that to me is meant to protect us and help us along in the world. But it likes to take over, and it can get caught in concepts and things that it might like, and like the shiny object. It's chasing the shiny objects, and it wants to make sure that you're always safe. And safety can also be emotional safety. So it doesn't want you to step out of your comfort zone. Don't do that. Everyone's going to judge you. It's going to, it creates voices. It creates the inner critic. It creates, I think of it as a peanut gallery of shoulds, like little monsters, the shoulds, like you should do this, you shouldn't do that, should this, should that. And we all live with these constant tapes in our minds about all these things that we should or shouldn't do, or other people's expectations. And, don't do that. They're going to judge you. You're going to fail. We have that all the time. It's like a tape running in our minds, because our souls want to shine. Our souls want happiness and love and compassion and empathy. And that's where we should be coming from. If there's a should, it's that one. It's, wouldn't you rather live in harmony and happiness rather than fear and judgment? I mean, truly, that's how I would prefer to live. And it's important to understand that you're not your thoughts, especially those negative ones. And it's really important to understand that if you can isolate those thoughts and identify them, like the beliefs you were talking about, you can actually just say, thank you very much. You've helped me this far. Time to go. I'm moving on. And that's how, to me, you bring the ego a little more in line with the soul, because the soul is meant to guide you to that wonderful place of living well and being truly happy. And the ego should be in service to the soul, but it shouldn't be burying the soul, which is usually what happens, because that's the world we live in. It's really hard to disengage the ego.
Some interesting stuff there. Yeah, ego and soul, interesting stuff. Let's go back a tiny bit though, because you mentioned that fix wasn't quite the right problem. It wasn't quite the right word to describe the techniques required. Is this through self-reflection, through meditation, through experience, expanding comfort zone, or what's the practical advice for people to discover their clarity and to know who they are?
I think there's so many ways to approach it, and it'll be unique for everyone. But the easiest and the two most consistently easy things that you can do are self-reflection. So the inner reflection is really important, and the meditation is also really important. So to the degree to which you can sit, even if it's for 5 minutes a day, and meditate and just be in a quiet space for 5 minutes or more, that's really important, because it calms the mind down and it allows you to drop into yourself. And even if you can't calm the mind down at first, it's okay. It will happen. And then the inner reflection, journaling, because reflecting inside is great. You have to get it out. And whether that's voice recording it or writing it or typing it, like I'm old school. I like to write. And it just, to me, it's like once the thought is through and out, it allows the processing to occur subconsciously, and continue to basically remove all these limiting and negative beliefs. And people will do sound baths are really great as well. Sound baths are beautiful. They're auditory vibrational energy that helps move energy through your body, because a lot of it is energetic. So, I mean, there's so many different ways of doing it. Yoga for me is really powerful as well, and very physical. I have a lot of energy, and so I need to get it out. And yoga for me has been very powerful. Some people run, that's their meditation. The physicality is really important. So if it's a walk or whatever that is, that dancing, it's this massive expression. But to really understand what's going on that's holding you back up here requires to sit with it and think about it and then let it flow out of you.
Okay, a lot of stuff interesting there. I've never heard this sound bath. Was it sound bath?
Sound bath. Mm-hmm.
Never heard of that. I've jotted that down.
Yeah.
But one idea I heard recently was to write on a piece of paper this aspect of yourself, this habit you want to get rid of, write it down, I don't know, pen or word, no idea, and burn it. And burn the paper.
Yeah, oh yeah, releasing. Yeah.
And journal, yeah, I used to have one of those actually I started it on 23rd November 2015, and it lasted more or less a year. Still exists, but just over time, I went from like once a day to once a week to once a month, and it was like, oh, I forgot about that. And it was like, I forgot about it until just mentioned it, and it's like, well, when was last entry? I don't know, 10 months ago. Yeah. And what I used to do is the date, and then I used to put a little smiley, some word, so a little smiley face, and then used to write as much as I could remember. And the thing I found about writing, and you've experienced this surely as well with a book, is that the more you write, you just get loads of ideas, just keep flowing, and it's just like floodgates of just like, oh, talk about this and this and this and this and this, and then it's like, I'll just do one page. I've got one thing to write about. Oh, you end up with 1 or 2 pages. It's crazy. I haven't written that in ages, and it's there's some interesting stuff in there. And one thing I've discovered recently is called I forgot what it's called now. It's sensory deprivation.
Oh yeah, flow chambers.
That's it. Yeah, you're in a chamber with water, Epsom salts, and somehow I like to know how exactly. The salts, you levitate, and it's like, how? That's fascinating. And you don't hear anything, don't see anything, apart from like your heartbeat or like the blood flow into your brain. And you're there for like an hour or something, and you just feel like totally out of it. And it's like, that sounds amazing. Must try that. And today's Friday. It's Friday, and on Tuesday, I don't meditate very often. Maybe once a month, because I don't feel that I need to. But then again, I've heard that when you think that kind of stuff, you then really need to do it. So I don't know. But I meditated once. I'm very busy, and started like 8:15. YouTube, just some Kundalini music or meditation music, and much like transcendental or my own way or something, where it's just like just focusing on less and less over in the mind of the awareness. As Dan DePandy would say, awareness is over here, then over here. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and over time, just less and less, and just focusing more. And it must have been about 10-15 minutes. Then I think I fell asleep. I woke up at 9, but it was like when I woke up, it was like straight away, and it's like I feel a bit better. So it's very powerful stuff. Just understanding the human body, what our limitations are. Maybe from a new age perspective or new angle, but at the same time, however, as I said earlier, shed one extreme belief every year.
That's right.
You can try this stuff for free, 1 hour, just experiment, explore, discover. You don't know. You
never know. Yeah, it's exactly right. And nothing of this work, because it's inner work. This is like the work that we need to do on ourselves to really find that inner meaning. It shouldn't feel like work. So if you don't feel like meditating every day, you shouldn't have to. If you don't feel like journaling every day, you shouldn't have to. It has to be what works for you. And everyone comes into it from a different place. I meditated on and off. And then finally something happened that I started, and I said, I'm going to do it. And then I just made it part of my daily routine. And I don't journal every day. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't journal for a couple of weeks. It just depends. But I always take the time every day to at least have some quiet time to myself. And sometimes I don't get to meditate during that quiet time. So it needs to be really fluid and flexible. The important thing is the intention. What's your intention going in, right? If your intention is, I really want to clear the noise out of my head then do whatever is possible for you to do that. Sometimes that happens to me when I'm gardening. Whatever it is, it's taking your dog for a walk. It's, listening to music, whatever it is that it just makes your mind just stop. It's all the time in our, it just makes it just go away for a minute. I just want to chill. And that's the way it should be. If it's a chore, then you're naturally going to reject it.
Yeah. So I'm interested then. You mentioned that you do some workshops, or but certainly you're writing a book. What are you working on next?
Yeah, so I'm actually doing a few things. So I'm writing a book. I'm working towards a big keynote for a big event in LA here at the end of April. It'll be 1,500, 2,000 person event, and it's all about truth telling. So I'm going to be getting up on stage, and I'm going to be very vulnerable and telling a story. And so I'm looking forward to that. It's, that's a big one. So I'm going to be working on that, working on this book. And then I'm a coach and a consultant, and I do workshops. So for the business side, I run workshops around leadership empowerment for women. I work directly with women, directly with entrepreneurs, with companies, to do workshops in their companies for groups. And so that's the kind of work that I'm doing on the business side.
I asked something then, I forgot what. So, you said exposing yourself, the story. In my first book, I talked about how, or maybe my second one, probably my first one certainly, talked about how when you expose yourself, you're revealing your weaknesses. So the psychology behind it is, everyone already knows my weaknesses, they're on the table. Therefore, they can't attack them because, it's common knowledge, or everyone knows, like, who cares? And when you expose that, you're more human, you're more down to earth, you're more approachable. You're even though people are maybe closed off and secretive in their own way, when they even internally, they realize that someone else has got the same problem, or they can relate to, but they're much more vocal, much more open and public about it. Then they can see you, or it's like what's called a parasocial relationship, where they know you very well, but you don't know them. So it's kind of one way.
Right.
They know all about you, but who are you? Never met before. Don't know what's your name.
Yeah.
And there's a film called, I forget what it's called, 8th Mile, with Eminem in it, 2001 or 2003.
8 Mile. Yeah,
8 Mile, that's it.
Yeah.
And the very last scene, the rap battle, there's Eminem and some other guy, I think he's in the Avengers, or certainly Iron Man, one of the actors. And Eminem just goes out there and exposes all his weaknesses, just admits all his flaws. And because of that, his opponent has nothing to disrespect him by or diss him by. And his entire ammunition is null and void because it's already out there. So I think doing that is extremely powerful from a marketing and psychology and relationship building perspective as well. But also, I think the way I see it is, like on YouTube, as the video plays, it buffers. The more you're talking, the longer the time goes on, the more you're forced to think. And the more you think, the more natural the thoughts are, more intuitive, more from the original deep down inside you, therefore more truthful. So by just talking and sharing, you kind of realizing more about yourself as well.
Yeah, you're getting to your authentic self. Yeah, because you can't script. I mean, some people could. I'm not an actor. I don't know how to memorize lines, but I think it could be really hard to fully script and memorize lines in such a case. It's disarming. It disarms yourself. It disarms your ego, and it makes you more authentic and more approachable. And we're all human. We're all going through the same struggles in different ways, but ultimately we're all going through the same struggles. And so it's kind of going back to this permission, which is this courage that comes from the Me Too. It is giving everyone permission to say Me Too. It's giving everyone permission to say, don't live with that shame. And it doesn't only have to be around Me Too, but like everyone's worst story, if it's not expressed in a way, it could really make you sick. And because you need to get it out, otherwise it just lives inside of you. And you'd be surprised how much the world supports you and the people around you support you, and you don't know they do, because you don't want to say, you're scared to say something, but that's your healing. And truly, that's your healing.
Fascinating stuff. But AdaPia, as we slowly wind down this podcast, if you could put, say, 10 words or less on a billboard in LA or San Diego or San Francisco, I don't know, I'm not too familiar with California, but a billboard, 10 words or less, what would that billboard say?
Oh, wow. 10 words or less.
It has to be, because the font size and all
right.
that kind of restriction.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to see it.
Everyone knows.
Yeah. Live with purpose.
You got a subtitle, so there's a few other words, maybe.
Live with, let's say live with purpose.
Live with, I want to say, right at the bat, live with purpose. Find your destiny.
Yeah, or find your destiny. Your destiny is within, because it is. It's inside you. That's where it is. We have to do that work to go inside. Yeah.
And speaking of that work, I'm just curious then, the idea just popped into my head. What is that common or most challenging, or something you hear a lot in emails or FAQs from people, or comments or such, that people always have? And what's the most common thing they need to overcome?
Generally, or is a specific topic?
Yeah, just generally, just something practical for the audience.
Usually it kind of is, it's kind of back to this meditation. Like, how do I, my mind is too busy. There's all these thoughts. How do I stop the thoughts? I can't meditate. I'm always thinking. Like, that's a really common one. I don't know how to meditate. I'm doing it wrong. And you're not doing it wrong. You're not doing it wrong. Be patient and be persistent with it, and take time off. And I can send you, there's a great article that talks about the science around working less or being less busy, and just taking some time off, because we need to rest our minds. And so I would say, for those who have tried meditating, or they just think my mind, life is too busy. I'm pretty sure everyone can carve 5 minutes out of their day, just 5, set a timer, just 5, and just try and sit quietly. Maybe you don't close your eyes. Maybe you do with a guided meditation. Maybe you put some relaxing music on, but just breathe. You don't even think about not thinking, just even let it think, but just breathe. Try and think about, I'm just going to take like really big breaths, and I'm going to relax 5 minutes. And it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I find that 5 minutes, everyone's got 5 minutes. You're just not being resourceful enough. If you ain't got 5 minutes and you're wasting too much time, I will throw this bone out there. I figured out a way to get 26 hours in the day. And so there's always time. You want to go somewhere? There's always time. There's always time. When you know how to manage the clock, but also the internal clock, and this.
That especially when it reaches for the mobile and it wants to turn on a social media channel. There's your 5 minutes. It's hours a day for some people. It's hours.
Yeah, it's quite crazy. It's quite deadly. But the way I see it is that everything ultimately is our own fault. You say you haven't got 5 minutes, BS, because we've all got 5 minutes in one way or another. And then there's that little famous video about the guy in the jar, and he put the rocks in, and pebbles, and the sand, and the beer, and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, the hack right there is to say, start with the big stuff, important things first. And it's like, well, I use that all the time, even down to planning my day, even to how packing suitcase, put the big stuff in first.
Yeah.
I'm digressing slightly. The point with that is, I nearly forgot it now. Point with that is, it's your own fault. If you can't figure out, if you haven't got the time and you can't figure out or try to solve your own problem, ultimately, it's no one else to blame but yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What is called, I don't know if it's in game theory or wherever, but it's called root cause analysis, where it's essentially saying, from like an introspective kind of angle, your decisions, the situation of today is a consequence of the things you did before. And let's say in the morning you get up at 6 and you got a train to catch at say 8 or something, but you spent 30 seconds fastening a shoelace, or on Facebook, or checking that one extra email. That 30 seconds has a knock-on effect, where you miss that green light, you get a red light, and because of that red light, you're delayed by an extra 30 seconds. So it's compounding, and the extra 30 seconds means that the queue for the car park, for example, there's 5 cars rather than 4 cars.
Right.
Had you not messed around with it 30 seconds, which would have that compound effect, would have been here. So everything is ultimately your own fault. And if you don't up your game, it's game over.
Right. Yeah. And it's amazing to think that just that 5 minutes, that 30 seconds could have that effect. But even just 5 minutes of quiet time, especially first thing in the morning, because I haven't done this for years. I don't even know how I could, is turning the phone on. I just never, I don't touch it. People go straight to social media first thing in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
I just would never. There's a lot of stories. You open your eyes and you're on your email or you're on your social media. Like, that is the deadliest thing that you could do to set your day off on the wrong foot. Try and just not do that. Try to take those 5 minutes to wake up slowly. Maybe you don't have to go into another room and sit on a cushion or anything. Just try to be with yourself. I think we have a hard time being with ourselves.
Why do you think that is?
We're not ready to face what's in there, because there's a lot of inner work to do. We have a lot, and I think it's hard for some people to be with themselves, to be in silence, to be not busy, to go in and actually find out who they really are, because we all do. I mean, I'm certainly always still battling with, like, am I doing that for me, or am I doing that because I think I should? And so it's this constant bringing myself back to center, like, is that the right thing for me to do? And it's lifelong work, and it can be hard to just be with yourself. And then what do you do? Because we're so used to keeping ourselves busy that we've lost the connection to our inner selves.
I see what you mean. Yeah. But as we slowly wind down again, what are you up to now, and what's next for you?
So right now, specifically the next 2 weeks, as it's the holidays and I'm winding down and taking a lot more time. It's so dark now. So I use the darkness to sleep, because I'm a morning person. So I really nourish myself this time of year, and especially with holidays and craziness, it's really easy to get caught up. So I'm preparing for my 2018, because it's going to be a really big 2018. I've got keynotes, I've got presentations at major conferences, I've got the book, I've got new clients, and a rebrand for myself as well. So I'm just working on I'm working on getting 2018 off to a really big start, and really excited about it. There's a lot of trust. I feel very trustful of the way things are going to go. And so that allows me to relax a little bit about it and have faith that, because I have good intentions, that things are going to work out.
Yeah, it's interesting. Similar with me at the moment. Mid-December right now, so slowly, just the YouTube, as I said earlier, just phasing and pivoting that, and just changing and tweaking, and I'm phasing out one business and moving on to another, oddly enough, into fintech, kind of, or certainly a holding company. So
okay.
Certainly into finance. So I'm pivoting into that.
Yeah.
And I'm just refocusing on. We alluded to this earlier with the gratitude bit, which is this idea, which was you achieve these things, but after each time you achieve whatever, the new clients or the keynote speaking and beyond, then the idea is you ask yourself, then what? Then what? You do this, you do that, you do this, then what? And I've come to realize that I need to travel more. And I had the idea about a month at least ago, just book 54 days in advance, a random flight to anywhere.
Fun.
And just go for a week.
Yeah.
And just go, just travel, see what the hell happens, just to go and explore. And then I was thinking to myself, maybe I should put it off for 1 year, do it in 2019. and then thought, nah, if you think that, even though you say you won't, but I think I will stick to my word, do 2019. But people have all said, and that little chuckle you made then confirms it, that, oh yeah, you say that, but 2019 comes along, 2020. So it's like, now or never.
Yeah.
But it's like, at the very least, expand that comfort zone, just do it.
Right.
So
because it's never a perfect time, for anything.
Oh yeah.
And so if you don't commit to it, then it's never going to be the perfect time. And sometimes you just have to commit to it. And then it is exactly the perfect time, and you work backwards from it. It gives you a different kind of goal to work towards as well. So if you're goal oriented, then it helps because it's on the calendar and you have to plan for it. And because you're in Europe, and I lived in Europe for 11 years. And so I'm very familiar and I miss it a lot. And the freedom that you have to just fly to another country and another culture is outstanding. I live in LA, so I'm in a destination and I'm so fortunate. I love it here. There's so much beauty and experience. I don't have to fly somewhere else, but I do. But I can get lazy too. The beach is 6 kilometers away. It's only 6 kilometers away from me. I don't get down there as often as I would like to.
6 kilometers? Not like 4 miles then, because I thought America was imperial, not metric.
I'm Canadian.
Oh, right. Okay. Right.
Yeah, I'm Canadian. So I was born in Canada. And so I still, I use miles and I use Fahrenheit. It's a little bit confusing. I just know when it's warm.
Fahrenheit, I barely understand that. It's like negative 15 Fahrenheit, and it's like negative degrees Celsius. It just makes more sense. 0.
The metric system makes so much more sense.
Yeah, that's just Fahrenheit is just like it's 45 Fahrenheit. It's like,
I don't know.
That's quite cold, isn't it? I think.
I think so. I'm not sure. I don't live in a cold place, so I never have to deal with those numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
But I say that because I don't know what's a high in the Fahrenheit. 60 or 80. I'm not sure, but anyway, that's all right.
80 Fahrenheit is like 35 Celsius.
Oh, no, that's quite damn good. That's damn good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool nonetheless. So yeah, it's interesting. 2018. I feel I made a lot of mistakes 2016 as well, and just constantly looking back and evaluating, and this concept called reflection and action. Just looking at what I was doing and thinking, what did I do wrong there? What root cause analysis? How did I F up? How can I improve? What did I do wrong? Just retrospection. Just thinking and planning it all. Yeah. You say you're a morning person.
Yeah.
I really think I'm an all-day person. Lately, I don't quite know why. I've been waking up at 3 a.m.
Wow.
And I'm awake for about 2 or 3 hours, and it's like, well, I should really be productive. And then it's 10 o'clock now, and I've been awake for 16 odd hours.
Yeah.
18 odd hours, and it's like, that's pretty cool. And it's like, well, how can we be more productive? So that in part explains how you get 26 hours in a day.
26 hours out of a day.
But
yeah.
That's a whole different thing. That's a whole other podcast, but still. I also think you can get a lot more stuff done when you're productive. I've heard that you want to it's work hard or work smart. I've heard you want to train hard and then work smart.
I love that.
doing like the grind and the strategy to make the mistakes to improve. But then once you know what to do, what not to do, you understand the strategies, you've got the momentum going. You want to achieve this.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Do then, you're a lot more smarter and faster because you've, it's like I had the idea, just the theory was for a marathon, if over the course of a year, on week 1, you just do 1 mile, and each week corresponding, you compound by 10%. So 1 mile, 1.1, 1.23, and all the rest, and all that. You can, by the end of it, you can do a marathon, 26 miles live before breakfast. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you train hard, then did a marathon. Another marathon. All right, okay, let's get on with it.
Yeah.
Sure. But anyway, that's a lot of sidetrack and a lot of cool information there. But as we wind down, what is the best way for the audience to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so thank you. The best way for the audience is to Google my name, AdaPia. So as a child, that name was a burden. It was hard growing up with that name with kids. But it's quite handy nowadays because I'm pretty easy to find. If you Google AdaPia, I come up first. AdaPiaDerrico.com is my website. All my social handles are AdaPia. AdaPia D'Errico is my Instagram. And I also have another website, which is where I'm doing my writing. It's called realhealth.com. And that is really the easiest way to find me. My favorite social network is Instagram. So join me there. I love it. And that's really it.
Yeah, cool. I'll include those links in the show notes below. But AdaPia, it was great having you on the show.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed it. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. But, ladies and gentlemen at home, this world we live in right now is absolutely freaking crazy. There is so much opportunity out there for you, for me, people that may never watch this video, people that may never hear about us, and other guests that I invited on the show that never replied, or whatever the point is. There's opportunity out there for you and beyond. I believe that life is all about opportunity. The same elements and metals inside us, iron, nickel, and beyond, can be found in vegetables, but they happen to be inside us. So life is all about opportunity, as well as awareness, but that's something else, another question. Life is all about opportunity. So I think the real question you got to ask yourself is, what are you doing with your life? Because we have the power to go out there in the world today and do remarkable things. So I dare you, seriously, because it's stupid, I dare you to go out there today, do something remarkable with your life, because that is what it's all about. How cool is that? How cool, AdaPia? How cool is that?
I was going to say, amen, brother.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah.